Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Covenant Cast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Steven, and it is a big moment in the world of tabletop games, at least in our sphere of tabletop games, because a game called Warlord, which you may have heard about in the past 20 years or so of being in the tabletop gaming industry, or maybe just from our stream, where we threw back to it during the pandemic, it's coming back. And it's coming back via Kingswood Games, run by Josh and Woodrow, two people that Zach had the pleasure of interviewing when they were in Tulsa a little while ago. So, Zach, I'm gonna cut to you doing the interview. Anything you wanna tell us before we dive into Woodrow and Josh giving the spiel about the Warlord CCG?
Put me on the spot. I thought I was done with the intro.
He's back.
No, I think these are just two. We spent the day with them filming and recording the podcast and other content, like the documentary that is going to go up with their launch. And you can just feel it when you're talking to them. These are just two people that are dedicated and passionate about their favorite game of all time. And it's a unique opportunity to get a chance to bring back your favorite game of all time. And you can feel that. They understand the responsibility and I think the privilege that they have to do this. So sit back, enjoy. It's a rare moment where a game gets to come back like this. And I don't think there could be better hands for this to be backed by or led by.
Needed with.
Yeah,
I like that.
The game is in good hands. That's the best way of saying it.
All right, Zach. Well, we'll give it to you in a different time and place, and we'll go there now. Stay tuned.
All right, we are here. I'm with Woodrow, and we're here to talk about Warlord CCG, back from the early 2000s.
The saga of the storm continues.
That's right. So tell me, why in the world? Why in the world are you we bring this thing back?
Yeah, 20 years later, now 20 plus years later, I'm here because I was a 15-year-old boy. I had a weekly RPG gaming group, and one of our sort of leader of that group put some cards out on the table and showed us the anatomies of the card, and it was very similar to the game we were playing, and so we kind of already knew how to play and played it once, fell in love, and that weekly group went from weekly RPG to weekly RPG plus Warlord. And I just fell deeply in love with the game and stayed involved with it and along with the community. And through some recent events like the 20th anniversary of the game, I have now found myself wearing the hat of publisher, which is something I never imagined at 15 years old, playing on a ping pong table.
Yeah. Yeah. So 20 years goes by.
Yeah.
And we'll get to you being a publisher now, which I think is really fascinating, right? But I think you mentioned D20s. And this is a card game, heads up, potentially multiplayer card game with a D20 involved. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you add dice to a card game, there's going to be some people that are just like gone. Like they're already stopped listening to the episode, right?
Sure.
So what is it you think about Warlord that makes it a game worth reviving and revisiting?
That's a good question. One of the things that you'll notice about Warlord, the chassis, the base game, the bare bones of it is so starkly different from a Magic or like a loose plagiarization or a reimagining of Magic or that kind of one resource per turn system. Warlord's just a completely different game, but it's also an extremely fun game. It's a game that's meant to be played, and it's a game that if you have experience with other games, you can kind of put together how to play it. And it has just a ton of replayability, and the D20 comes in and makes every game different. And so, we mentioned 20 years have gone by. People are still playing with the same cards they were playing with 20 years ago, and they're not bored yet because they can have a different experience every time. And that's kind of one of the things that the D20 brings to it.
Yeah. So you inject a D20, and we're already on a different lane of card game, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you fall in love with this game.
Yeah.
At your RPG sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go from a role-playing game person to a card gamer, presumably.
Yeah, it sort of happened.
Does it like set its hook in, and then you become obsessed with this game and everything about it?
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things that happened was, initially none of us had card gaming experience. So I think a lot of people, when they first get into something without, this was sort of pre-internet-ish. And
Early internet.
Early internet, yeah. So you weren't looking at deck lists, you weren't net decking, and so your deck was as big as you wanted it to be. Probably didn't have card sleeves and maybe 100 cards, even though the deck minimum is 50 for Warlord. And so everybody in my group had 100 plus, card pile that they would use. And I was the first person to start trimming down. And I was like, if I play more copies of the cards I want to see and play less cards total, I'm going to have like this, really
revolution.
Yeah. And so I was the first person to notice that. And I really just started wanting to beat my friends, and I wanted to win every week. And it kind of
realized it was competitive.
Yeah. And then it was, our multiplayer games, 3 people were against me type of thing. And I started becoming competitive with it. And I would also go to gaming conventions like Gen Con every year, Origins, and play there. And it was, it kind of started in the industry. CCGs and TCGs are a lot of times called lifestyle games, and it sort of created this lifestyle hobby for me.
Became a lifestyle. So I know this game was originally created by AEG, and when I look back at the history of card games, they're particularly notable because one, their games were very innovative and different, and they weren't the resource system.
Yeah.
One of my favorite throwbacks we ever did was 7th Sea, which is another AEG game.
Yeah.
And the other thing that they're really known for, in my mind, is organized play.
Yeah.
Like you hear all the L5R stories, particularly about the clans and like the cards.
So loud. Bonsai.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So I know Warlord has a little bit of a interesting organized play element going on as well. So you realize card games become a lifestyle for you.
Yeah.
You realize you're competitive. So do you have any good stories of that kind of could showcase old school organized play, what made this unique?
Yeah. Yeah, I can just...
I feel like that's such a part of this.
I'll briefly, but at the same time, I know it can't be too brief, just explain the way the organized play system worked with the Overlords, Dragon Lords, and Medusan Lords, sort of like tiered mountain climb that you would do as a player. So you would go to your weekly event, and you would play against all your friends or all the people from the area. And whoever won that event got the chance to challenge this sort of special sort of dungeon style, like player versus enemy or environment
like
style, like a boss. Yeah, exactly, a puzzle. And you would fight against this thing, which was completely imbalanced. It was way stronger than whatever you were doing.
And who's typically fielding this deck? Is it like the organizer?
It would be the tournament organizer or somebody on staff at the local game store.
Okay.
Yeah, and you would battle them, and your chances of success were pretty low. I mean, first off, your deck just won your weekly event, so it was obviously like designed to play against other decks. You weren't necessarily equipped to fight this, large, crazy battle against this overpowered character. But if you somehow beat it, and it wasn't easy, and I don't remember the fail rate for Overlords, but something around 10-20% maybe they would lose.
So maybe if it's once a week, this is like every couple of months someone wins.
Yeah, maybe somebody once a month or something, or every couple of months, gets to win one. And then if you beat it, you got a copy of the card. So you get a copy of this overpowered character that's an Overlord. A Warlord is a level 5 with whatever stats, but then an Overlord is like sort of double that. It's like a level 8 with even higher stats. And you get a copy of this card, and the card is 2 things. One, it's a card that you can bring into play. If you can build back enough ranks and get your army big enough, you can put it into play. Or it's also a ticket. It also serves as a ticket to go and do a regional challenge.
Okay.
So this would be like at a convention, or sometimes there will be regional partners through the OP system that would have these other characters, another lord, but these are called Dragon Lords. And these are where Overlords, you had to fight them with the tournament deck that you had. The Dragon Lords, you would battle with a deck that you would specifically design to beat them. So your deck that you take typically would have one goal: to beat the Dragon Lord. The specific Dragon Lord, all the cards in their deck, you have all the info, but it is still so difficult. It still had a 10% fail rate. So you take your Overlord, you hand it to the Dragon Lord runner, they sign it or mark it up, and then you get the challenge. And you have like a 10% chance to, defeat that Dragon Lord and get a copy of them. Mm-hmm. So it's like the next stage of that.
And that copy is also a ticket.
That copy is 2 things as well. So you can bring it into play, and then
the Moxie here is amazing.
Yeah, typically if you drop a Dragon Lord in Warlord, and then you have any dragons in your hand, usually the text on a Dragon Lord is that you can play dragons into your front rank or like really far up in your army. And that's completely just sort of breaks the game at that point. It's sort of a win condition for a deck if you're trying to get to that. And they're impossible to beat. You can play with them, but they also serve as a ticket. So it's the same type of deal where you can go up the ladder, and this one, though, is to the top of it, to the absolute peak of Everest, where you can challenge what's called a Medusan Lord.
Okay. And who are the Medusan Lords back then?
Why does that matter?
Yeah.
What Medusa is,
It's like an even crazier character.
The Gorgon with the snake head. No, so Medusan Lords were in the lore. They were sort of the most evil and top villains of the world, and it's sort of a little bit of a heavier, a little bit of a darker world. And they are that's story wise, and then mechanically, what this is literally the impossible. I know I've really built up Overlords, and I've tried to give some weight to Dragon Lords as well, like 10% fail rate. But Medusan Lords only take 100 challenges, and it's a 1-of-1 card. So, 2 of 1.
First person to beat it gets it?
The first person to beat it gets it, and it only takes 100 challenges before it retires, and you need a Dragon Lord just to get the chance.
Yeah.
And they're impossible puzzles. Some examples of Medusan Lords from the past. One of them got 2 additional Warlords. So it was basically like a 3v1. You not only fight this overpowered thing, but there were 2 other players on their side. The mechanics for one of them was anytime you would go to play a card, you could take a card from your collection and replace a card you were going to play with a card from your collection. So the runner for that one had like 10 binders.
Wow.
And he would just
Perfect
say...
card every time.
Whatever you wanted, perfect card every time. One of them, the hand size in Warlord is 5. This Warlord would start with 13. Or not
So just
Warlord,
crazy,
Overlord.
insane things.
Insane things. And a lot of Medusan Lords took those 100 challenges and retired.
Yeah.
And there were whole like subcultures or like subgroups within the Warlord community that's what they did. Maybe they were into tournaments, maybe they liked their weekly stuff, but there were a lot of people who were dedicated slayers, and that's all they did was brainstorm and workshop and goldfish and test with each other and try and figure out how to take these things down, and still failed because they were so hard. But occasionally, once in a while, you wouldn't hear about it often, maybe once a year, twice a year, somebody would take down a Medusan. And it was like so celebrated by the community. Those people are,
Did you
immortalized. Oh, every week. No, I never did. And I did challenge once or twice, but like I said, it was hard to get a ticket. It really was something you had to work for, and
to even have the opportunity, then you have to be able to use the ticket.
Then you need to go and travel to find the Medusan Lord, and usually those it wasn't regional like with a Dragon Lord where you can kind of, you can find one within a couple hours of you, maybe a couple times a year. This
Sometimes
was
it's like you got to go to California to play this.
Yeah, you got to go to Gen Con SoCal
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, or whoever has it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is pretty crazy. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you acquired the license or the rights to bring Warlord back.
We did.
And I'll be talking to your counterpart
Sure.
as well as part of this. But you bringing it back. Obviously, you love this game.
Yes.
And we've been hanging out filming some other stuff here today. And that's clear to me from our very first conversation. You guys really deeply care about this, which is cool.
Sure.
And anything that can inspire that kind of care is of note, I think.
Sure.
So you decide to bring it back for one reason or another. You get the rights to do it. What's that been like? I mean, you're not a tabletop gaming publisher. Like what in the world are you doing, and why are you doing it?
Yeah, I think I mean, we sometimes there's so many people who would love to see a product come back or love to see they know that a game is good. They know it in their bones, in their soul, and they know that other people would like it if they could just get it in front of them. And we sort of had that with Warlord, where we felt like Warlord stopped being published, not because it was a bad game, but just because of circumstance. And the people who follow Warlord and still follow Warlord, only several thousand that we are, but the chance to share something that we're passionate about with other people, we couldn't control it. And we worked with AEG, Josh and I, and another community member, Vic Politis, and Rich Carter, Laura, and Greg. Yeah,
I start saying names. It's like the rookie mistake. You do not start. Anyway, can't carry on. Yeah. Anyone else we need to shout out here?
Oh my, yeah.
Hey, if your name's not on the list, it's not personal.
Yeah, Arna, Olsh, and Florian as well. But Yeah, when we helped AEG do the 20th anniversary,
And wait, that
set.
would be 2021.
This was 2021, so the game originally was in 2001, and they did a direct-to-player sale in 2021.
So they did a 20th anniversary stack of, I don't know, 15, 20 cards.
Yeah.
How'd you get roped into that? Maybe let's start there.
Sure. So I had actually gone into DMs of John Zinser, Todd Rowland,
John Zenzer being the
president of AEG,
AEG.
at the time, yeah. And Todd being brand manager and works a lot on Smash Up and some of their other games and events.
Great person.
Wears a lot of hats. Love Todd. Love John as well. And I had slid into their DMs. At this point, I'm sort of like one of the community leaders. We have a group called the Guardians of the Storm that's sort of the continuation committee for Warlord. And I approached them and said, "Hey guys, I don't know if you've checked your calendars."
That committee.
I was a very active, probably one of the more, if not the most active people in that committee. And I slid into their DMs and said, "Look, I don't know if you've paid attention to your calendars, but Warlord has a 20th anniversary coming up. I will be so disappointed if you guys don't do something. The community would be happy to fund art. The community would be happy to do anything, but we would love to see some kind of official anything from AEG to commemorate 20 years of Warlord, even if it hasn't been published the whole time." And they responded with, "Well, we're doing something, and I think we're going to let you in on our cone of silence. We will, let you come and see what we're working on." So they brought me in, showed it to me. And it was the coolest idea. It was those Medusan Lords that I mentioned,
Sure.
But it was like the prequels. So it was them displayed as warlords, and it was going to be like a little direct-to-player set, little tiny product. But when you haven't had anything for 10 years, it was,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a feast. So we were very excited, or me and a couple other people who were shown were very excited. But when I saw the cards, they just hadn't really been the sort of the dev. Nobody put on the dev hat for it. Obviously, there were some cool designs there, but people didn't think about how it would play out practically. So I told them, maybe a third of these cards are sort of busted. We're going to have to ban them during spoiler season. A third of them don't work because the rules text on it is not templated correctly. And then a third of them are uninteresting. And they said, "Oh, well, that's no good. Can you fix it?" I said, "Sure." And how long do I have? And they said, a week and a half.
Oh,
So we kind of came in at the last hour, and
you and Josh.
I told them, I said, "I can do this. Happy to sign an NDA, but I need at least 2 other people if I'm going to do this in this amount of time, and I need some, soldiers." And Josh was a close friend that I knew would really devote time to it, and Vic was a great pick as well, also a close friend, and he had been taking care of rules for a long time. It was a long-standing judge. And so we, put our rings together and made the product show up and expanded it a little bit from the original vision as well, and sort of did right by AEG and helped them out, and that kind of got our foot in the door and opened up communication with them.
And that kind of showcased that there was interest, and because that product is not. I remember seeing it. Mm-hmm. We'd done the throwback, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I saw them announce it, and I was like, oh, maybe this is like a cool 2-player starter. Because I don't own any of it, right? It would be really cool.
You and everybody else on the internet.
Yeah. And then I clicked over and it was like, well, I can't really use this. So I didn't, engage with it. But
it wasn't a playable product.
Yeah, but it does mean all of the ones that did engage with it probably were either collectors or players.
Yeah.
They've
it was solidly players, yeah.
So it's just a nice, hey, there's something here. Mm-hmm. There's interest here. And of course, the whole TCG boom of the 2020, 2021 was going on at the same time.
Yes.
And you just have this it's all happening. So
mm-hmm.
you
the
get
second
involved.
gold rush.
Yeah, that's right. The second golden era here.
Mm-hmm.
So you get involved through the 20th anniversary product.
Yes.
As far as I know, those cards are very well received.
I think there's a few maybe that, but on the whole, it was very well received. And we had a week. Yeah, I can always use that as an excuse. I always mention that.
You see this positivity returning, this energy.
Absolutely.
Stuff for the official stuff for the first time.
Yeah.
So then you go through the steps, and now we're kind of on the eve, not exactly, but pretty close to the eve of your Kickstarter.
Yes.
And you're going to be kickstarting, and paint me a picture. Is what is the vision for the game at this point, right? Is this you're going to kickstart in one set? Is this, what's the long term of this?
Yeah.
Across, what? Tell me.
Josh and I are building a house together in Mexico, and we just need enough just to fund that. Then we sail into the sunset.
Take a couple milli, go build a house in Mexico, be done. Yeah.
No, this is exactly what it looks like and sounds like. It's a couple people who are extremely passionate and ready to reinvest in the company, ready to do whatever we need to make sure that the product is the Warlord, the game is connecting with players, because we're so convinced that it's a good game. The only challenge for us in our minds, learn to play sessions has really shown us that. We did just short of 150 demo/learn to plays that were actually ticketed and sold out at Gen Con last year, and they were it was 150 10 out of 10s. It was incredible. So we're convinced we have a good game. Are we kickstarting it once or twice? We're only going to do this first Kickstarter. That's our plan.
Kind of kickstart the whole business.
Just to kickstart the whole business. And the reason for that is we need a lot of capital to get the next couple sets underway now, so that we can start working, a year in advance instead of, month to month on design and art orders and those kind of things. And for artwork, we don't want to skimp. I'm a well-known art collector. I own, 70 to 80 originals from Warlord paintings.
And these are hand-painted originals.
Yes. Yeah. And so I've kind of become friends, or at least acquaintances, with a lot of the artists, and we want to have good art, and we want to get it from, the people that we want to work with and we believe in, and whose artwork we really appreciate. And in order to do that, it's so expensive. So
and time-consuming.
And time-consuming as well. Yeah. No, that plays a factor. And so we want to kickstart once and sort of get some money directly into the publisher, which is important for us to, get the next couple sets going. And then from there, though, we'll go straight to distribution and trying to, create opportunity for other companies and retailers and those kind of things.
Yeah, get that whole thing spinning up. So this is going to be a full-fledged a TCG or CCG? Which one is it?
I have to admit to not understanding all of the nuance there, but it was branded and is still going to be branded as Warlord Saga of the Storm. And then if you want to shorten that a little bit, if Saga of the Storm is too many syllables, then Warlord CCG.
CCG, okay. Yeah, I don't know that there is a difference. I've played a lot of CCGs and TCGs. I think it's all the same thing. But so this is a full collectible card game.
Yes.
And you're going to launch with a Kickstarter, and then, fulfill the first set, launch, go to retail, go to distribution.
Yes.
And then the aspiration is that you'll be able to spin it up and continue producing this for as long as people keep playing and buying it.
Yeah. Our plan is to do ideally 3 sets a year. We don't want to do too many. We don't want to. We like having some space in between products for people to digest it, for metagames to settle, for people who follow that kind of thing, and for people to, build back up interest and, spend time with the cards. Yeah. It's an experience. It takes time. We don't want to be pushing things too often, but we don't want to go too slow as well, to where we just leave a metagame stale for people who want to go to the local game stores and, play competitively. So,
yeah. And so, we talked about that crazy challenge system earlier.
Yes.
So are you bringing that back, and what is that going to look like?
We are absolutely bringing it back. I mean, there was no question, and that's a question that we get a lot. So it's good to address that. Yeah, no, we 100% are bringing that back. It will function very similarly to before. The only difference is, before, when you won the challenge, you got the Overlord or Dragon Lord or Medusan Lord, these powerful characters. The only thing different now is those won't be exclusive promos, in the sense that won't be the only way you can get that card mechanically. We'll put those in sets as well, but it will be a different version. It'll be foil, full frame, special, maybe alternate art. It will still be like a prize and a trophy to the person who wins it, in the case of the Overlords and Dragon Lords. But then later in a set, it won't be legal for play for the Saga format, the rotating format. It won't be legal for play there. But then later, when it actually comes out in a booster box, in a booster pack, in a set, it will be legal for play. But if you've already won one, then you don't have to go chase that card down anymore, and you have the coolest version possible.
Yeah.
And so it's still a really big reward and a really big deal. And then Medusan Lords won't be legal for competitive play, but they're one of ones and extremely cool. And if somebody wants to use them at their kitchen table, I'm not in the cabinet looking, so
yeah, they
go
can
for it.
Do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So that brings up a kind of a good point. So you have a D20 involved, and you have this challenge system. Where Where do you see Warlord fitting in, right? Like if you're out there listening to this and you're a player, who do you envision this game is for? It could be for a lot of people, but is there like a primary?
Yeah, the right answer, everybody. But
There it is.
Realistically, though,
Sometimes if you serve everybody, you serve nobody.
yeah, and I don't want to cut anybody off. So if it doesn't sound like I'm describing you, but if I was describing a Warlord super fan,
Just even what you're envisioning when you're making it, like, and it doesn't always line up with who actually ends up.
Yeah. No, I think if so, first off, there's going to be immediate connectivity for anybody who has played a D20 based role playing game. You're going to be able to look at our cards and figure out what they do based on, having played D20 games. And then the other thing I'll say is that we tend to have a lot of people who come over from like 4-player multiplayer formats from other games where Warlord is kind of a slam dunk because you have this character, you have this Warlord, everything's built out around it. You have their starting army, you have, all the cards support what they're doing. And it's this sort of theme that starts in play. There's like a starting army in Warlord. And so you start with a bunch of stuff in play. And you build around that, and it really tends to resonate with either of those people or both. And it does a nice job. Some games are like very casual, and some games are very competitive. And I think Warlord has done a really good job of serving both over time. I mean, we have a lot of players who are very casual and a lot of people who take it very seriously. And you would think, I know D20 might be a turnoff for certain competitive players. They look and they go, I don't want to be rolling the dice when I'm in the finals of, the Pro Tour, Warlord Pro Tour, which, currently doesn't exist. But of course, Josh and I have it in the back of our heads. But what we find is, you can have 100 or 200 person tournament, and out of the existing Warlord player pool, we can tell you who the top 8 will be, and they will be there because the skill, the D20, over the course of time, it's their decision making and their skill level that gets them there. So
very cool. So you mentioned aspirations of a pro tour. So we got a challenge system.
Yeah.
If all goes well and you're producing 3 sets a year and everything's going on, I'm also thinking. You mentioned retailers and organized play, and so what are you hoping for in terms of the sort of support you might see from retailers, the retailers that might be interested in engaging, and then
sure,
does that cascade up? You see this all the time where you have locals and then you have regional style stuff. You qualify for national level stuff, and you qualify for Worlds or Pro Tour.
The latter.
Yeah, what does that look like for you?
We don't have it ironed out yet exactly, but I know for retailers, something we're kind of passionate about. We want to create opportunity for them, and we want to make things as easy and, ease the burden of running organized play, because organized play really can turn into a burden for a store. If it's too difficult, and especially on, why spend all this time on a product that, they don't know that well, is just coming back. They're hearing rumors. Obviously, once we're big enough, then they will want to deal with us. But especially initially, we want to make things as easy as possible. So we want to do as much stuff in stores and try and generate buzz for the stores, but also make it as easy as possible for them. And that's where some of the Overlords being able to be run by a tournament organizer, and it doesn't have to be necessarily the store owner or store staff that does it. That way they can focus on their counter and, all their online sales and different stuff that they're doing. But then they can just, have a trustworthy, tournament organizer from the player base. And then there's also you're connected with the community in that way as well. And you have volunteers stepping up who want to be doing it and also get some, rewards from the publisher.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Overlord edition is really cool. I know a ton of people who run events at the local store or kind of the community ambassadors. And a lot of times they just sit on the sideline.
Yep.
There'll be an odd number, so they'll sit out of the tournament, or maybe they just need to run the tournament.
They just want to see it happen.
Yeah.
So they're passionate too. Yeah.
That's like a really cool way to fold them in. Right.
Yeah.
Like they've got this role they get to play. They get to play the special deck, and once every month or two, it's this big, every week people are watching. It's like, Woodrow beat the Overlord.
Sure.
And you get to see it, and that whole thing.
It is. Yeah. I know it is kind of a privilege as well. Yeah. To be that person and be the person that, you want this card, you got to go through me. And we'll also obviously reward them with, some player reward type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really unique approach. Like I feel like a lot of organized play has sort of gotten streamlined over the past 10, 15 years of just what it's supposed to look like and how it's supposed to go. And there are publishers that do that really well. But that's a very different take that's super cool.
Yeah.
So what have been, Have there been any unique challenges or unexpected challenges since you get through the hurdle of actually having the rights to do this? Mm-hmm. And we haven't even launched yet.
Yes.
But, you're very fresh to this whole experience. So from your perspective, have there been unique challenges so far that you didn't expect? Or if you could go back and tell yourself anything, do you have any wisdom you'd share?
Yeah, let's see. I definitely be hard about deadlines. I've seen a lot of people blow past deadlines. Just working with so many different people because you see a CCG and you don't realize it's kind of like with a movie. Same thing with a movie where there are hundreds of people behind it, even if they were only in to do some paintings or go over the rule book or just different things. And I'm not calling anyone out, but just stick to your deadlines. Be as firm as you can there, and I don't know. We are very fortunate in that we knew a lot of people. We didn't have to go scrounging too much, and we had a lot of connections with just industry people, or we just happened to know great video editors or great graphic designers or different people that it was sort of all organic. It felt like we were uniquely positioned. And like I mentioned, I knew a bunch of artists from having, purchased paintings.
Yeah. So
we were just uniquely positioned to do this. I don't know that we have been in it long enough to have major regrets yet.
Yeah.
But talk to me again in a year, and I might be in tears. I might need a box of Kleenex. So
yeah,
we've made so many mistakes.
Well, that's how you learn, right?
Exactly.
Got to go make the mistakes.
Yeah, we're willing to do it. We're willing to try.
Yeah. So, Kickstarter is about to launch, and this will probably go up during the Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. What does success look like in the Kickstarter for you? Are there certain metrics? Are there certain, what is success?
Success for me, again, we want the game to be in front of people. So for me, number of individuals versus like number of total sales would be great. I just want people to try it. My advice to you is to try Warlord. You are welcome to hate it, but I really just don't think that's why I push that is we just want people to try the game because we know it's a fantastic game. It's so fun. It's incredibly fun. And we'll be doing gameplay today as well, which I'm excited when we get to that. But that's success to us. And also just drumming up enough capital to, again, be working on the next couple of sets. That's important. And then just making promises and keeping our promises, keeping people engaged and sort of making a celebration of Warlord and getting some fresh blood in the mix.
Yeah.
I think that's our biggest, is just getting new players. We have, a lot of Gen X, a lot of kind of late millennial, and we want some Gen Z. And so, we want some people zooming around.
Zooming around.
Yeah. We want people zooming around with Warlord cards.
Yeah. A little, relight the fire a little bit, right?
Exactly.
Restart this thing.
Yeah.
Reboot. So final question before I pivot over to Josh. When you're looking ahead, are there any, what do you think are going to be the hurdles for Warlord? Not necessarily as a publisher, but for the game, right? For this game to be successful and for it to come back and for you, to have some number of years of a run that's productive and positive. Mm-hmm. When you look at the horizon, what do you think are the challenges ahead?
I think the CCG space right now is really competitive. So a lot of products come out, and as I'm checking Kickstarter daily, and people are kickstarting constantly. People are coming out direct to retail and distribution constantly as well. And a lot of bigger studios are starting to realize, hey, CCGs are back. It's time to go. And so I'm a little worried that we could get lost in all the noise. Even we push back our Kickstarter almost a full year, not quite a full year, 6 months, because we were afraid of, launching during some other big card games coming out. And so it's just a very competitive space. And I think it's possible for, the best products and the best games to, fall through the cracks, maybe even to, games that aren't quite as good, but they're just, for whatever reason, they have more power behind them. So that can happen. Sometimes the small publisher can lose. It's possible. That would be worst case scenario. But I think Warlord's just really strong. And if we can get a person to try it, they'll pretty much love it out of the gate. That's what we found out at Gen Con. Again, 150, 10 out of 10s sold out, learn to place. So
were you collecting surveys or something?
Yeah. So what we did is we would kind of look at people, and when they were grinning from ear to ear and laughing and like, or slamming the table, even sometimes there were negative emotions, but it was always like, the one thing is nobody just went through those demos and just was kind of like, oh, whatever. Okay, I'll play my energy. I have 2 energy. Okay, I'll play my card. And they were like, it was a lot of high highs and low lows, and it was a lot of fun.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for sitting down with me. Best of luck. And
My pleasure.
I have no doubt. We played this. We played the Warlord on stream in the early pandemic days, and at the time, I mean, it's surreal that you're actually bringing it back. But we were mentioning like, hey, this one needs to come back. Like, this has got some interesting stuff.
I think you guys said that verbatim. Yeah,
100%. So best of luck. We'll be rooting you on, and we're gonna pivot over to Josh. But thanks for being here, and thanks for taking the time to ask some questions.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, so we kicked I wanted to say Warlord instead of Woodrow.
Same thing.
We kicked Woodrow out. I was tired of hearing his voice. No, I'm just kidding. Now I'm with Josh.
Yeah, I've been sitting here the whole time, but I was like, man, Woodrow, you gotta stop talking. It's my turn. Just get out of the room.
Look. So tell us a little bit about why do you think this game, why Warlord, in 2024, why is it worth bringing back?
Sure. Great question.
I got him. Stumped him on question one.
I'm trying to decide how to phrase it. I always stumble over myself when I'm trying to explain this to people. But there's a few things. There's a lot of CCGs coming out right now. I've heard people say it's like the next stage of CCGs and TCGs. So from that standpoint, we're at a good time to have another one.
Opportunity.
It's a good opportunity. We're seeing a lot of. We're also seeing a lot of collectors and speculators and people doing that sort of stuff. And so doing a kickstarted, CCGs, we have an opportunity there just from other people who are doing it and being a successful standpoint.
Sure.
I think during the pandemic, the market for collectibles went crazy, and that brought a lot of old card games into light that people hadn't messed with as much for years, but they were, had that hankering and that extra cash from being at home all the time to get into. And so that kind of boosted popularity for a lot of older card games, and Warlord included.
I was going to say, including Warlord.
Including Warlord, yeah. I mean, you guys, during the pandemic, they did a Warlord game. Which we were talking about at the time. We were like, oh, I'm coming at this. That's cool. And so that's one thing. And then it naturally, the game itself is Commander. It's not exactly Commander, but...
By Commander, you mean Magic Commander.
I mean Magic Commander. So Magic Commander, so you can draw parallels, right? Magic Commander, you have your one guy who's like your antithesis of your deck, your commander that does your thing, and guides the process of your deck creation and helps you, dictate what you're going to do with that deck. Warlord's the same way. Every single deck has a Warlord. You have to have a Warlord. You can't play the game. It's called Warlord. And so similar to WoW TCG, you have your one card that helps dictate what the rest of your deck includes. So it's a similar concept to a lot of TCG players from that sort of standpoint. And then the final thing is, it is my opinion that there has never been a better time, other than maybe like a year ago or a year and a half ago, for D&D in the world of tabletop games.
Yeah.
It's, with your...
Very popular.
Yeah. Critical Roles and your Dimension 20s and your people streaming and doing all kinds of stuff. It is a very popular time for the game. Local game store was struggling to find enough DMs for the, weekly D&D sessions that they started doing a few years ago, because there was an unknown, apparently, desire for people to learn how to play and be playing as much as they can. So... Warlord was originally marketed as the game you already know how to play, because they were going for those tabletop
kind of role-playing style, D20 based.
Yes, you roll a D20. A lot of the terms are similar. It feels from a mechanics standpoint, maybe not like moving the cards around the board standpoint, but from terminology, it's very similar to an RPG.
Yeah, well, and even as someone that doesn't have an extensive RPG background, we played it on stream in the early pandemic, and it was very intuitive, which is rare for a 2000s game.
Yeah.
So it sounds like opportunity knocked. You know, we've been hanging out today, filming and recording stuff, and it's very clear you guys care about this game deeply. And was this the first card game that you really got into?
No.
You know, how'd you get into Warlord? What's that story?
So how did I get into Warlord? I was a kid in elementary school. I played Pokemon like a lot of kids. Or I started collecting Pokemon, and then my best friend played Pokemon, and so I didn't have the money or the cards to actually build decks, so I borrowed decks from him, and we would go to the game store. We would play some. That introduced me to the game store, which was, you know, a gateway drug, basically.
A community.
A gateway community into this wonderful world of people hanging out in the store for 10 hours every week and playing their game.
Of all the things you could be doing as a kid, that's pretty...
you know, it's pretty harmless. Yeah. And this was... I have a young kid, and I'm starting to do the same thing now. It was fun for my best friend's dad would play with him, and so it was, you know,
for sure.
And so now I'm trying to do that with my son, who's almost 5, can't read yet, but I'm introducing him to the game store for sure, so that we can start building that. But from Pokemon, I went on to Yu-Gi-Oh, and my friend I played Yu-Gi-Oh with, one day we're sitting around. I lived half a mile from the game store. We're at home, my house. There was no Yu-Gi-Oh on Saturday. But he said, you know, there's this other game that they play, and they'll teach you how to play for free and give you cards for free, which was not a thing that Yu-Gi-Oh players did. They weren't giving you things for free.
Yeah.
And you get a die that has 20 sides on it. And I was like, you know, probably 13,
you have
14.
20.
I was like, you have me a die with 20 sides. He's like, they will give me one. I had not played any role-playing games.
That's interesting.
At that point.
So Woodrow came from role-playing.
Yes, I did not come from role-playing.
And you came from card games.
I came from card games, yeah.
And that brought you two together. Do you think that's you know, sometimes when you put a game or a product or something in between a couple of interests, you can kind of miss both. But do you think this is... one thing I want to ask you is just why do you think this game can be successful in 2024, right? And do you think is part of that this sort of shared interest pool between a card game and role playing? What do you think there?
I really do think that's part of it. I think it has, from that standpoint and from a mechanics standpoint, just because the way that the board works and the board state works with the rank and file system is not really similar to anything else that's popular right now, at least. And it's not the role playing aspect is definitely not something that, you know, the mainstream card games have right now. So that's two edges on its own that are really great to bring into the market, because if someone's like, hey, I'm really tired of a resource based card game, which is what is, you know, almost the norm, right now. So Warlord is not a resource based card game. You play your cards based on how they can be played. You know, you've got costs to perform things, but it's definitely not the same sort of... Your resources look different than they do in your Pokemon and your Magic and, you know, all those clones.
So if you had to... do you have someone in mind when you... I know you've been working on the rules extensively, and that's kind of your thing.
Yeah.
But who do you think this game is for?
Sure. Well, I want to be selfish and say it's for the for the current player, but that would be wrong, and it's definitely not what we're trying to do, because we can't survive on building a game for the current player, because the current player is the person who isn't going anywhere anyway, right? They've been holding on to this game for 20 years. It's not like we're gonna, you know, do a great thing by bringing it to them again when they're already here. So we're being very intentional about designing the game and creating the rules, and having rules that exist in the background, so that when we design the cards and we, board out or map out what we're trying to do for sets and for design and for who we're marketing to. We want that to be for the new player and for someone who's going to be excited to get to learn this new card game that they can play for the 30 minutes before the guy who's always late gets to the D&D session.
Yeah.
Or that when they're really burned by their commander group, they can say, hey, why don't we pull out the Warlord and play a game of Alliance, our similar multiplayer format.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that so that we have a little variety in our life. So I also won't say we're marketing or building it towards the competitive player, because I think the competitive players just kind of show up, right?
Yeah.
You're always going to have those people that are like, I want to win. And so that almost builds
its own reward, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think you have to do that necessarily. You have to support it. We'll have organized play, and we'll have, that kind of stuff to build and market the community. But I think we're really making the game for that guy who wants to sit around with his friends at his kitchen table at home and play Warlord, because that, I think, is the current largest community of Warlord players. You don't see it, because why would you? Do you get on Facebook and or Twitter and say, hey, I hung out with all my friends in my house today and played a bunch of card games? No, you don't do that.
Common. Yeah, so you kind of are envisioning a more kitchen table. And there's a D20 involved, so I know, from a competitive standpoint, some people are going to...
Yeah, RNG is a weird thing for competitive play. Mm-hmm. The randomness component is a little strange, but competitive play we want to exist, and competitive play we will make sure can exist. But we also are making the game fully draftable, because we want you to be able to sit down and have a good time while trying to win.
Yeah, and build your collection.
And the whole 9 yards. But for me now, I like to win, but and I was more competitive when I was younger, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. We all were.
But yes, right. But if I want to just have a good time, I don't want to necessarily go to a game store and play a constructed format all the time. That gets stale. The same 5 decks are winning a lot of times until rotation. So I want to draft. I want to be able to have a new experience when I play.
Yeah. So Woodrow was telling us about, or telling me, I guess, about the 20th anniversary product kind of being your guys' real entry into behind the scenes.
Yep.
I'm curious, you do that. We talked about getting the license and having the ability to make this game. Have there been any surprising or unique challenges between getting the go-ahead that you could do this project and, we're getting close to the Kickstarter now, and this will probably be going up during the Kickstarter, but have there been any unique challenges? So I'd love to hear about them.
Sure. Man, unique challenges is hard for that time frame. I would say the real struggle and the real thing was getting the license. AG for a decade said no. And
to you or to people?
To everyone, to people. So it was very public that they were like, we don't really think that it's the right time to reproduce this game. We also don't do that anymore. And because the game is so near and dear to John Zinser, it wasn't like he wanted it to license it to somebody that he didn't have a respect for.
Trust them.
If he didn't trust them. And so through the 20th anniversary set, we were kind of able to help build that trust. And I respect them for being a very relationship and trust-based company. And they're all friends. They're all people that a lot of their employees now came to them because they used to be Warlord players or L5R players or whatever, and they've just stuck with them now as the board game company. It's how they entered the industry, and I think building that respect and trust was beyond essential in order to us getting that. Now, once we have that, and those things that have happened since then that have been a struggle, I think. We'd never done this before. Obviously,
brand new.
It's brand new learning. I have finance and management degrees, so I have an understanding of business. I have a background in payroll and finance, so
it's very different at like a corporation, though.
Yeah,
than starting from scratch.
Yes, exactly. So I have a basis in. One of the better things I did was in college, I had a research assistantship for entrepreneurship, and I took both entrepreneurship and small business classes because I wanted to. Going to college for business, I did it with the forethought that I wanted to start my own business someday. Okay. So
here you are.
Here I am starting my own business.
First business?
It's my first business. Yep. Yeah. I've researched it before. Like in college, I knew how to do it. I made business plans as part of college classes and things like that. And so I don't want to say that my knowledge has been invaluable to this business, but it helps. I mean, it's so many of these stories of people trying to bring things back or license things, they don't have that background, and they know even less than we know about or knew about what we were doing. And so, and I don't really even know. There's all kinds of stuff we don't know about. I think the larger challenge has been, trying to figure out how the logistics work and things like that. Like, how does fulfillment work? How does distribution work? How do
it's a lot, man.
Yeah, it's a lot. But how do people do things? How do these people navigate these things? And it's not a challenge, but the unique thing that I've noticed that has made me very warm to being a publisher in the gaming industry is it feels like a big old community of people who just want to help each other.
Sure.
Especially from the smaller game standpoint. Like, I don't know a lot of people who work on the larger brands, but from a smaller brand standpoint, we have friends that work at other companies, and we're like, hey, man, we don't know where to start with this. What do we do? And he's like, let me send you all the information I have. I will tell you everything we do.
That's awesome.
And every single person that we get pointed towards, they're like, oh yeah, we know these other companies, and if we're not the right fit for you, yeah, we'll introduce you. That's fine. Yeah. And it's very wholesome. And so that's not a challenge, but it's the most unique thing that I've found, because I work in the business world now and have worked in multiple different things in the business world, and it is not the cutthroat sort of business or the landscape that I would come to expect from other industries.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely not a zero-sum game mentality, right?
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, it's weird. Like I don't remember how we got in contact with you guys for sure. Maybe you reached out to us?
Yeah, you posted your announcement that you were going to be bringing it back, and I think I reached out.
Right.
Because we had played Warlord on a stream way back, and played a lot of old games, and there's some that really stick with you, and Warlord was one of them. So we were elated that you were coming back. But yeah,
and you guys were already on our brains because I'm now remembering you guys had talked to an AEG employee when we had discussed potentially bringing Warlord back. I think he met you at like some Flesh and Blood event and was talking to you about it at some point. Yeah. And so again, everybody knows everybody. Everybody's
That's how that goes.
If we're like, hey, we need to meet. How can you? We would love to get to meet this person. How can we get connected? Or do you know somebody who does this? Who do you use for fulfillment in Europe? Who do you use for distribution in all these countries? That sort of thing.
On and on it goes. Yeah, very cool. So Kickstarter soon. And what Kickstarter or beyond to you? What does success look like?
Sure. Success is us being able to produce a self-sustaining card game that stands the test of time.
So you want to be doing this as like your job for a while, or maybe forever.
Forever would be glorious.
Yeah, like if you retired and you were still involved in this game in some way.
Oh my goodness! What's the longest running CCG? 30 years. I mean, I'm
Magic would have been 93.
Yeah.
So 31 years right now.
Yeah. So that's basically how old I am. So if by some miracle,
by 62, you're still doing this.
Yeah. If by some miracle that was still happening and I was able to, be doing this for another 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, that would just be phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, the goal is that we do well enough to make sure that we are a self-sustaining model so that one set pays for 1 to 2 more sets, so that we can grow and expand and, market to more people and continue producing the game, continue making new and interesting products. This is our full-time gig, because it's not 100% full-time for me right now because we haven't launched anything. We're not making the revenue for it.
So once this thing is up and running, right? Let's say you get 2, 3, 4, 5 years in. What do you hope people say about Warlord?
I hope they say, you know what, this is fun. I play this with my friends. I play this with my family. I used to play this back in the day, and now I have an 8-year-old kid who I'm able to teach how to play, who I'm able to get involved in games and build knowledge in role-playing games and stuff through a card game, because if, an easy, entrance for children into this space is Pokemon. Mm-hmm. And so if, you've taught if you want your kid to be a gamer with you, and you've taught your kid Pokemon, and you would love for them to also play RPGs with you, then this is a good go-between, right?
Kind of a bridge.
Yeah, a bridge mm-hmm. between, Pokemon the card game and playing a tabletop RPG. And so that's a good space. I would like people to say that we've done a good enough job. I mean, there's nobody's a great job will be good. I mean, I don't know.
Wildest dreams.
Wildest dreams.
Let's set wildest dreams.
This is the best ever. Third time's the charm. Third company to be producing the game actively. They're doing it right. And yeah, it's gonna stand up. It's gonna keep getting produced and played, and it's the game they're excited to play above all others. I would love that.
Yeah, nice. So when you're looking out, we're talking about the future now. When you're looking out into the future, what do you foresee? What are the challenges for Warlord? Let's say 30 years from now, right? Mm-hmm. You get to be doing this for 30 years, and your dreams come true. What are the challenges in between now and then in your mind for Warlord? Or the most notable ones, or anything that sticks out?
Continued excitement for the game. I'll be honest, the game is purposefully draftable so that we can continue to sell products. You can't really create a survivable product if someone buys one of it
and you're done.
Then you're done.
Uh-huh.
This doesn't work. I mean, you have to keep making something, and if they are excited to buy more than one of it because I buy a box and, me and 4 to 8 of my friends sit around and draft it. And then after that, we have the cards to play our, continuing format or legacy or ancients or whatever. Then.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because this is obviously a game that has been around for a long time. Uh-huh. People still play, even though they're not buying anything.
Yep.
But if you want to be continuing to be a company that produces this game and expands it and does creative things with it and continues to support it. We talk a lot about the overlords and stuff with Woodrow, which sounds incredible. Like, I love that whole system.
Yeah.
There has to be, and I think that's one of the struggles, that people can have, but there has to be a model behind it that works. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you do it for a couple of years and then you go away.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I don't want to say that's all of why it's taken so long, because that's definitely not true. But we did get the license almost 2 years ago now, not a year and a half ago. And so all the people that still play are like, "Come on, man! I want to see new cards. Why aren't you?"
What are we waiting on?
What are we waiting on?
The Kickstarter yet, let alone after the Kickstarter.
Yeah,
print,
exactly. Well, the simple answer to that is we're not going to just do it to do it.
Yeah, you want to do it well, right?
We want to do it well. We want to do it correctly. We want to make sure we're releasing it at a good time. We want to make sure we've actually spent time to lay the groundwork for a continuing business. I mean, it's a business. It's a game. It's something we enjoy. I mean, love what you do. But
it's a business that, your answer earlier is really revealing about ideally creating a sustainable company that can continue to make this thing.
Right.
It's not like you guys are trying to move off to an island, right?
No. I'm not worried about that. I would like to be able to pay myself enough money to get by with my wife and kids and support my family and, have a good time and, live in the house we already have and, just keep at it. And I mean, my wife and I bought her grandparents' house, so it's important to us. It's not like we really want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
I love my life. I love where I'm at. I've got 2 guys. I have a 5-week-old.
Congratulations.
And so
it's a big deal.
And a 5-week-old and an almost 5-year-old. So
yeah,
I want to be able to support them and support my wife and let her work the way that she wants and make sure that I'm producing something that people enjoy to play. Because if we're just producing stuff to produce stuff to make money, then
that could be a bit soulless.
Yeah, it's a little soulless. It's not as fun for the players, which makes it less fun for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's clear from talking to you both that this is not a soulless enterprise. There's a lot of passion here, a lot of excitement. So, my final question for you is, if someone's out there listening to this, and this Kickstarter is going on, there've been a lot of TCGs coming out, a lot of games coming out, a lot of things going on that they could be spending their time and money doing or supporting or buying products from different companies. Why should they take the time to check out the Kickstarter?
Sure.
And even potentially back this company and this game and this project?
Yeah. Well, from a game perspective, I feel like I'm backing the right horse if before I've even released anything, game stores and players are coming to me and asking how they can support us, how they can get involved with organized play, how they can get product for the game and make sure that their players are supporting it. They are telling me, we've had game stores since we announced it, they were like, okay, you got the license 2 weeks ago. What's organized play look like? And how do I make sure this is in my store?
Yeah, and you guys went to Gamma, right? Like, that's a trippy experience.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And well, Woodrow, I'm 5-week-old, so I did not go.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just really, I feel like it's, if those people are already wanting it, if the game stores are already excited to have it, maybe we're doing something correctly. So maybe you should take a look, see if it's got legs. And there's been it's something that there's been a continuing community for that hasn't gone away for 2 decades. And with the last 10 years there being 10 new cards produced or 11 new cards produced,
and that was about 2 years ago.
Yeah, and that was 2 years ago, and and that sold, I would say fairly well for a product that you can't even open and play a game without having cards that were produced 10 years before that. So
yeah,
it's clearly a game that people think there's something towards, that aren't just me who love it and have been one of those people playing it for 20 years. But I think that gives it a lot of credence. But also, if it's a game you just kind of want to sit down and play that is very easily learnable based on other stuff you do. When we were doing Learn to Plays at Gen Con this past year, which was honestly a new experience for both of us. We've taught people how to play before, but when you're like regurgitating and teaching, you quickly learn the easy thing to do is, okay, have you played D&D before? Yes. Okay. Have you played Magic before? Yes. Okay. Well, you know how to play this game. So let me give you the basics. You turn your cards. You say you want to do a thing with them because you turned it. You roll your die. You add up your components, and that's it. You hit the thing. You do the wounds. They, lose the hit points. They die. It's not quite how it works, but and you proceed on, and at the end of the day, you kill the Warlord. That's how you win the game. And it's very, you kill the big bad, and you win your session or whatever. Sure. So it's something that I think is going to be very enjoyable to new people to get onto. It was, I don't know, we didn't really have any negative experiences at Gen Con other than one guy who was purposefully being devil's advocate, which was, and we like those too, because you know what they do? They point out stuff that we're doing wrong, and we can grow. And it's not, we love constructive criticism, not the old player that's like, nah, that's wrong, you shouldn't do that. But the player that's like, okay, what are you doing? Okay, why are you doing that? Not, that's wrong, but why are you doing it? Because if you can't explain it to yourself in order to explain it to them, maybe you should think about it. Yeah. Like there's a couple rules changes that were implemented after some of those learning sessions, and a couple simplicities we added to final products, so that it wasn't like why are you doing that?
Yeah.
So
you listen.
We listen. We like to listen. Yeah, and I loved. We had a guy playing we did at Gen Con last year. We did beta test decks event, 2 32-person events, and there was a whole group from I can never remember if it's Michigan or Minnesota.
Starts with an M and
it
it's up
starts with
north.
an M. It's up there. I'm sorry, guys. I love you. But the game store owner was like, "Hey, would you be, accepting of some feedback?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I think he's about to rip into me, which would have been fine. But he was like, "First off, I think you did a great job." I was like, "Oh, okay."
My feedback is you're awesome.
Would
Would you accept
I was
that?
like, "Okay, oh, all right." He's like, I think what you did here was good, which is, we like to be told, it's nice to hear what we've done correctly, but it's also nice to hear the validation that what we thought was correct.
Yeah.
And then also, there were guys in the group that were like, "Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this?" And that's, if it wasn't a question we had already asked ourselves, we love to hear that so that we can ask it and say like yes or no, we're not going to do that because of this, or you know what, we're going to think about that, or we've thought about that, we've decided it's not a right now thing. But
Yeah. All right. So somewhere between a role-playing game and a card game, and a lot of fun.
and a lot of fun, love it. Yeah, that's exactly that's
is
why
Warlord.
that's why you should back the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And
'cause it's
also because I think it's the greatest game ever. So
fun. Yeah. Yeah.
and I've played a lot of games. Woodrow and I both have a varied experience in games. We've both played RPGs. We've both played a bunch of different card games. We've both played minis games. So we have a background in board games, etc. So we have a background and understanding of a lot of different games. I think this is my favorite.
Yeah. How it better be.
Yeah, exactly. So
All in now, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. So I think anybody who has that sort of experience will at least find it enjoyable. I mean,
Yeah.
there'll be starter decks. Buy some, check it out.
Yeah. Try it. And try to not like it.
Try to not like
Yeah,
it.
that's the challenge. I challenge you to try to not like
Try
the
to
game.
not like it.
Yeah, well, we're big fans. Appreciate you guys being here and taking time to do this podcast. We have a lot of other content coming, and definitely check out the Kickstarter. We're super hyped about this one. If you go back and watch that old stream of ours, you can tell very quickly that just how much we were enjoying it. And I recently watched it. It was really funny to watch it back now.
Yeah.
Not in a million years did I think this game would actually ever come back.
Yeah.
And I know it's quite challenging. It's going to take a lot of work from you guys. So kudos to you for, the passion and determination to bring this back into the world.
Yeah.
I think that the tabletop industry and tabletop community will enjoy this, and it'll be just a very good addition to the pantheon of what's available out there. So looking forward to it. Best of luck. And if you're listening, go check out the Kickstarter and all the content that I'm sure is coming from us and a ton of other people for the months to come.